Welcome to another tutorial on the MATLAB Tech. In this particular tutorial series, we are looking into the concept related to Arduino programming. And in this particular tutorial, we will be looking into the concept of ultrasound sensor and also implementation in a hardware perspective as well as on the software perspective. So first stage, we will try to understand what is ultrasound sensor and how we are connecting it, what is it is used for. The second stage, we will be looking into the basic working principle of ultrasound sensor and how we can measure distance using ultrasound sensor, and what are the key things that we need to take into consideration when we are jumping into programming environment like MATLAB or Simulink to do this. And at the end, we will be implementing it in the Arduino IDE so that we will get the basic understanding related to the concepts. So let's jump into the first part. So this is regarding the hardware setup that we will be discussing. We have the HC-SR04 sensor, which is the ultrasound sensor we have. And in this, we do have two major parts, the transmitter and the receiver. Okay, so the transmitter will transmit a ultrasound signal, and that is basically a sound signal which is being received in the receiver side, right? So once it is being received, then we will use the velocity of sound as our major parameter. Through that, we will be able to measure the distance. But first, we need to understand how we connect the ultrasound sensor to the Arduino programming board. The first pin that we have is the ground pin. So this is the ground pin. And the second pin that we have is the power supply pin. Right? This is a 5-volt power supply pin, and this is the VCC. Right? So these are being connected to the corresponding 5-volt and to the ground of the Arduino board. So this is the first simple connection that we will be doing in the Arduino programming board, right? And then we have the echo and the trigger pin. So echo will be connected to the pin 10 of the Arduino board, and the trigger will be connected to the pin 11 of the Arduino board. So what is basically trigger and echo, right? The main question over here is that. So trigger means you are sending some signal, right? So you are triggering a signal. So that's why this is called a trigger pin. Okay, whenever this pin is high, then you will be able to send the ultrasound signal. The echo pin, it gets turned on whenever it receives any signal. So in our programs, we need to turn it off by default so that you will be able to turn it on when you receive any signal. So that is the job of echo and the trigger pin, right? As an overview, it is like trigger pin is the triggering of the signal, and echo pin gets on when it receives the same signal, right? And what is the signal and who generates the signal? That is the main question, right? Because we are not programming these signals to be generated. So that is being handled with the help of this chip over here that is present for this particular ultrasound sensor. So here it is a combination of trigger and receive and this particular chip, right? So with the help of this chip, you will be able to generate that ultrasound signal that you will be playing with, right? So let's understand like how the base principle works for this particular sensor. So coming to the working principle for the ultrasound sensor, whenever you are sending any signal, right? So the sending of the signal happens from the trigger pin, right? This is the signal that is going into the object. So this is a sound signal. It will travel at the speed of sound and it hits the object, right? It hits the object over here. Then once it hits the object, then it will return back, right? So the same signal returns back, and the distance that is traveled with the help of this particular signal is 2d, and here d is the actual distance, so the distance that you are able to measure. Okay, when you calculate the distance, you will be dividing the the total time or the distance that you calculate. So suppose calculate the distance you are getting from the sensor, then you need to divide it by 2 to get the actual distance. So that is what you need to do. Okay, when you have these things ready, right, how these things actually works. So whenever you are turning on your trigger pin, right, you will have pulse of signals that get generated. So there will be 8 pulse that will be triggered once you turn on this trigger pin, right? And this total interval is 10 microsecond. Okay, and the frequency of the signal is 40 kilohertz. Okay, so the frequency of the signal is 40 kilohertz, and this is the criteria for this particular wave of ultrasound. And with the help of this, what you will be able to do, like whenever you are sending the signal from the trigger pin, right, so suppose you started the trigger pin, it sends out the signal, then it will travel for a certain distance, and then it will come back and it will hit to the echo pin, right? Once it hits the echo pin, the signal value will get high, right? And here the point comes, like when it becomes high, right, the time. So suppose this is the timeline that you have. Okay, and you started your signal over here. This is the trigger that got triggered the signal or generated the sound, and now it hit the object and it came back to you in the echo pin, right? So this is the time that you are getting, right? So this is the time in microsecond. Now you want to measure the distance in centimeter. So to get the distance in centimeter, right, you need to multiply it with a factor 0.034 into your time in microsecond, right? So once you do this, you will get the distance in the form of your centimeter, and you will be able to calculate the distance. Now you have the distance, which is the 2 times the distance, which is this one. So once you have this, you need to divide this distance by 2. So cm, suppose cm is the variable, divided by 2 is actual distance that you have. Okay, so that is how you will be able to calculate the distance with the help of this ultrasound sensor. So in any programming environment, when you are trying to implement this, right, so at that moment you need to first trigger and then wait for some time. So this is the steps. So first trigger for 10 microsecond and then wait for certain amount of time. Like you will not be knowing the time, right? So how you will know like when this enable signal is being received, right? So this is done with the help of pulse in. So there is a function called pulse in. So it will monitor the echo signal or echo pin when it is turning on, and that will give you the outcome like the pulse length, how much is the pulse length, which is the time over here. Okay, so this time you will get from your pulse in signal, and with the help of this you will be able to count the time, right? So you counted the time. Now using the time you will be determining what is the distance. Okay, distance calculation we've seen over here as well as over here. Okay, so this is all about the working principle. So now let's jump into the hardware implementation and try to see how the things works in actual environment, and we will be able to do some analysis as well. Okay, so yeah, in case you are liking the channel, please consider subscribing. In case you have any comment or query, please let us know in the comment section. We will be more than happy to clarify your doubts, and have a great day ahead.